chairperson of the Portfolio Committee in Parliament that deals with water and environmental affairs.
South Africa is a country that is divided by race, class and gender. What is the Portfolio Committee actually doing to tackle these issues in terms of water?
Well, of course, most countries are divided by those divisions. South Africa, of course, is more acute because of our history. Our history was one where race particularly was the deciding factor, and that people that were fair-skinned were clearly in the privileged position and people that were darker were not. Gender has always been a problem in most parts of the world, but particularly in South Africa as well, that they were always seen as second-class citizens. So all those relationships, when you are building government and you're trying to govern the country, those relationships and those realities of those legacies of marginalization and disenfranchisement have to be taken into consideration. But the problem that we have in this country is that people think that merely by talking about it and not doing something specific about it, things will go away. So they say, okay, we're all equal now. Well, I say, yes, we are all equal now, but we're all equal in terms of the law. But in terms of the reality that we live every day, we are not equal. I mean, clearly, if you go and look at just the latest figures on the census, if you look at the income of white people, until today, 20 years into our democracy, are like 30, 40 times more than the average for black people. I think with Indians, it's 3 times more than with Africans. With colored people, it's twice as much as with Africans. So clearly, the legacies that we've taken with us should not be the only deciding factor on how we deal with these things, but should clearly be a deciding factor. And unfortunately, particularly in this country with many white people, they don't see that factor. The fact that there's now equality and we shouldn't be discriminated against, they do not, for some reason, even if you tell them these figures, are not able to see them. So in the water sector, what we need to do is in a very balanced, and I underline a balanced manner, to find a way how we address all the challenges we have, both in terms of the marginalized and the poor, and in terms of the franchise, for example, mining and agriculture. Get the right balance, but we can't just treat everyone equally and as if things are going to come right. We have to take special measures where we affirm and empower those that have been disenfranchised and marginalized. If we don't do that, the gap will just keep growing. Because, I equate it with running a 100-meter race. Now that we have democracy in this country, we say, we're all now free, let's run the 100-meter race. In reality, if you watch it, if you were to run that 100-meter race, if you take a white person, you put them on the starting line. They will be there with their tracksuit, nice togs on, and so on. Put an African there that run the same 100-meter race. They're in effect carrying a 100-pound ball of steel on their left leg, from the legacy that they drag with them and that they come from. So you say we're running an equal race, but in reality the race is not equal because of all these factors and so on. So what we're saying is not just to take into consideration our legacy, else we'll get a skewed development again, but that we must try and find a much more balanced way in dealing with these things. What hurts me most in the water sector? You'll find beautiful dams built. Jozini Dam is one of them, and other dams. And you go and look at the people living next to the dam. They get water from the streams, from the streams that are running past their homes and so on. That's where they get water from. They don't get water from the beautiful Jozini Dam. It's just that kind of thing that we have. Is here we are, we have these dams, we're providing it for agriculture, we're buying for industry, but ordinary poor people that live right there, we just don't have the ability to put in the infrastructure so they can have clean or running water, that they can have the kind of sanitation they have. Now, what do we have? Next to the Jozini Dam, you have to take water from the stream, there's sanitation in bushes and in long drops and so on. And that's what we have in South Africa. So, there's a lot of things we have to address. And this issue about class, about the position of women, and about the position of the poor, are things that we should not just take for granted and say, well, it'll come right. We have to take special measures, special steps to take, without undermining the other steps, but to try and achieve to a much more equitable system. And that's what my worry is. There is no equity at the moment, or very little equity that we've even achieved after 20 years in the water sector. We're working on it. It's the central policy that we have now in our national water strategy, but we're going to have to do a lot to be able to achieve and to overcome some of those hurdles that class, gender and race have created for us, especially in this country.
Thank you, Lange. Tell us more about the fact that you discovered that 30 to 40 mines in South Africa operate without water licenses. What is the portfolio committee going to be doing on that situation?
Well, this whole area of the cross-cutting between mining, environment and water is a very serious issue, and one that I think we've not given enough attention to. Through our discussions and interventions, I know that the Minister is talking to the Minister of Mining Resources to try and see if we can't create more integrated procedures. Because the problem is the departments are operating separately from each other within their mandates. So you'll find maybe that someone is given a mining license, but they've been given the mining license without actually seeing whether an EIA has been done and whether they've got a water license. And then they start mining and they put up buildings. So that by the time you want to act against them, there's a whole lot of infrastructure, jobs have been created and so on, and then becomes very difficult. So what we've said is we must look at creating one integrated system, that each department maintains their own authority and their own mandate, but that there's a protocol created how this will be done, and that there is very clear that you can't, for example, start mining. Even if you have a mining license, you can't start mining until you have your water license, if you want to use water and so on. And so that is what's happening at the moment. We are hoping soon to get a further briefing from them to see how far these discussions have gone, so that we can try and see that but if we don't do it, we're going to create huge problems. Because down the line, if the Department of Water has to start acting against people because they don't have water license and so on, it could create other social and economic problems for us. So we need to get it right up front, that all the bureaucracy that's needed must be quick, it must be clear, and it must be done in an expedited manner, and then when it's done, that people then can act according to what they've been granted. At the moment, I'm afraid that's not what's happening. We've also asked for reports to tell us which are these mines and so on, and to see what the department is doing about it. So we, in the near future, will receive a report to see how far we go with that.
Okay.